Hey everyone, it is Tanya. Welcome back to the channel, or welcome if you are new here. Today I am back with another apartment renovation, and I'm actually really excited to share this one, as this is a style that has been on my to-do list, something I've wanted to experiment with for a very long time, and that is the idea of wabi-sabi. If you're not familiar with wabi-sabi, it is a traditional Japanese aesthetic, or sort of a worldview centered on the idea of the acceptance of transience and imperfection. Basically, wabi-sabi could be described as accepting beauty that is imperfect, impermanent, and incomplete in nature. So really leaning into neutrals, natural materials, things that aren't always perfect and man-made. And I think it is really cozy, and I love how this apartment came out. And if you'd like to download this, build it for yourselves, it will be available on the Sims 4 gallery. You can find it under my EA ID, which is Gryphi, Gryphi. You could also find it under the hashtag Gryphi, and that information will also be in the description down below as well. So the floor plan has pretty much come together now, and I'm starting to play around with the idea of where I want the kitchen to be and which pieces I want to use. I started with this kitchen set from the Home Chef Hustle Pack. I switched it to a couple of different ones from Eco Lifestyle. I ended up trying out, I believe, the one from Jungle Adventure. I played with so many different counter sets, but I did go back to the first one I had, which was from Home Chef Hustle, because it just felt more calming and correct. And we don't have exactly the type of style of counters I would have chose if I could pick anything when I was tackling this style, as I was looking at loads of reference pictures. And I also did build this over on Twitch first, so chat was helping me to come up with ideas for this and figure out how we were going to lay out this space. And speaking of which, if you'd like to join us in the future, I do stream over on Twitch a few days a week on twitch.tv/Gryphi. It will be linked down below if you'd like to join us. I also did build this before the latest kits came out, so you're not going to see any items from those, although I'm not sure if any of them would have fit the style anyway, but I didn't have the kits yet. They were not out. But anyway, I did want to have some open shelving here in the kitchen, and I didn't really like any of the shelves we already had, so I made some using these debug blocks of wood, which I think looks really, really nice. So just placing those now. I tried just scaling them up and having a single one, but it was a little bit too thick, so I ended up just combining two of them and working it out that way. And one of them's longer than the other, but it does end up being covered by a cabinet that I put up on top of the fridge, so it's hidden and it looks like they're the same size. I think it worked out okay. But here I am going back to these cabinet pieces that I was using before, and I ended up having like a half island here where I tucked a table into the other side. I just thought it looked so nice. I was trying to lean into some of the like curvier shapes in this build, and just looking at, like I said, tons of references. I saw a lot of like vertical lines and bits of wood. So I did use that as a divider in the hallway leading you into the rest of the space. I also saw a lot of the lighting fixtures that were made out of more natural materials or like fabrics as opposed to glass. So I went with these really pretty pendant lights in the kitchen from I think those are from Desert Luxe, potentially. And then I was trying to figure out some artwork and which couches I wanted to use. At first, I really wanted to use these couches from Snowy Escape because they're the correct style, but I didn't like the color, so I did change them out for something else. But before we get to that, this piece from Snowy Escape I thought was so pretty, and I thought it would look so nice connecting these two shelves. It just makes the kitchen feel more custom, and it adds more of those vertical lines that I was trying to add in the space. I was really happy with that decision. I was just like really proud of the kitchen. But here I am just adding some more windows. I pretty much just exclusively used windows from Snowy Escape in this apartment. I started off by trying some other ones, but these are the ones I ended up going for in the end. Over here, I decided to have some pampas grass, but I wanted it to look like it was coming out of a bigger pot. So I grabbed this one, and I liked the drippy paint on it. It felt a little bit less perfect, which was the vibe I was going for in here. And of course, I'm using lots of light woods, and it just ends up being so incredibly cozy. I did end up going for one of my favorite couches in the end, which is this one from the Book Nook kit. It's the right color scheme, and it had the exact vibe I was going for. I wanted to have some layered rugs in here. I thought having a jute rug would be nice, but also a fluffy one. And I also end up swapping out the love seat for a couple of chairs from Snowy Escape that also have blankets on them. It just ends up being super cozy in here. I really wanted to have a large circular coffee table, which we don't really have in the game. So I ended up actually using a dining table from Horse Ranch and shoving it into the ground using the tool mod. I just elevated it with a negative number to have this really nice coffee table. The thing that's really frustrating with this, though, if you decide to use this concept, is that when you add or change anything on the walls, it's going to pop back up to normal height. So you'll see at some points the table is just kind of regular dining table in the middle of the room, or the tray that I put on top of it has disappeared. I do go back and fix that at the end of the build and probably a couple times throughout. But at some point I was like, I'm just going to go back and fix it later because it's going to keep happening. But anyway, we are in the kitchen now, and I wanted to add a couple of decorations to these shelves. Not much, just like a few items. I wanted to keep it fairly minimal. So I have a nice plate. I have some plants and some like pots and pans and some like salt and pepper, that kind of idea up here. I also wanted to have a like drying rack by the sink, and yeah, not too many decorations in here. I definitely didn't add as many as I typically do, but I still added my favorite cutting boards. I felt like those needed to be in here, and I also got some canisters over in the corner as well. For a long time, I didn't put any curtains in the kitchen or blinds, but a little bit later on, I am going to add blinds in there. I ended up swapping out the ones in the living room for the ones I believe from my first pet stuff, and then I ended up using the same ones in the kitchen. They just worked really nicely. And at this point, I decided I really wanted to have a fireplace. I just thought that would be nice. And so, of course, I used this one from Snowy Escape, and because it's on an angle, I decided to go ahead and put the rug on an angle as well to accommodate that space. And here is that table jumping up. So just trying to mess around with that. And that also allowed me to have way more extra space in the bedroom by having that diagonal. I didn't have like an awkward corner anymore. I thought it looked so nice. And then I just wanted to have a television over here. I end up using the frame TV, and the like console I have under it is from the Desert Luxe pack as well. And it just like the curves of it really felt like a lot of the inspiration I was seeing behind this style. So I thought it worked really nicely here. I also just got a couple of paintings and some plants up above the fireplace. And the texture I have on the walls in here is like sort of a wavy pattern in most of the spaces. And then I also have a more brick pattern, and I think they complement each other very nicely. At first I had more of a stucco, which is a little bit more of a natural material. And I think that looked nice as well. I feel like either of them could work. And then we are working on the bedroom now, where I wanted to bring in some more of these vertical pillars. So I'm trying to figure out like a headboard with them. And I do end up doing that, but I'm going to rotate it to a different wall because I didn't think it looked as good here. So here I am just moving those all over. And I actually am going to change the bed out as well to be a one, I believe it's a futon from, actually it's not called a futon. I don't know why I want to call it a futon. Maybe that's in the name. But it is from City Living in a black swatch, and I just felt like it fit so much better in this space. So that's what I ended up going for in here. There ends up being a lot of black accents in this apartment. I feel like it's just a nice contrast against the light wood tones that I have in the rest of the space. And it was also something that I saw very often in references when looking at this style. Something I noticed in my research, and it's pretty apparent in this build as well, is the description that I read of this style of being more imperfect and more natural materials and things that are just a little bit less complete or less permanent is not exactly what I was seeing in references or what I produced in the game. There are elements of that, but a lot of it still does feel very intentional and almost perfect in a sense. But I think that's because both in the references I was looking at and what I produced, I was really tackling a very specific style. It wasn't something that I was doing in real life where I was trying to obtain these pieces that were a little bit less perfect and getting them over time. I think that's just kind of how it works. And also, The Sims doesn't have as many items that have that quality to them. We do have some more rundown items in the game now, but that's not really what I mean. I don't feel like we have as many items that aren't pristine or as many items that look handmade or have elements of a more handmade quality. I'm not sure if any of that made sense. You can let me know, and also how you think I did when tackling this style. And of course, if you have created anything in a Wabi-sabi aesthetic in The Sims 4, I would love to see it. I think this is such a fun one, and looking at references, I just really enjoy it. So I hope I did okay at trying to bring this into the game. I feel like without custom content, it's a little bit challenging for the reasons I mentioned before, but you can let me know what you think. Anyway, we are moving on to a little office nook I have over here. And by the way, I never mentioned it. I am building this in 131221 Chic Street in the fashion district of San Myshuno, which is the apartment that usually Penny Pizzazz lives in. This is one of my favorite apartments to decorate, and I just felt like it was perfect for what I had in mind for this one. But yeah, I'm just bouncing around now and adding some more decor, and then we're working on the entryway. I just have a little table over here, as well as a lamp and a mirror you can look at before you leave, place to hang up some keys, and just regular entryway clutter. I also really enjoyed this shelf that I put on the wall here. It's from Snowy Escape, and I just added some plants and books on it. Pretty simple. I didn't go too out with the clutter in this apartment. Too full out? Too far out. All out. Too all out with clutter in this apartment, because that wasn't something I was seeing in this style. It had clutter that felt kind of intentional, but it was also, like I said, a little bit imperfect. And I think my favorite item that I chose that has that vibe is that vase that I have the pampas grass in right next to the kitchen. I just really like that drippy pot. I think that one is from Dine Out, if I remember that. I think that's where it's from. But anyway, we are working on the bathroom now. I was trying to figure out which tile I wanted to have in here. I'm pretty sure I ended up going with this black tile in the end. And I decided to build a custom shower. So I ended up using some more of these vertical slats. And I put a wall-mounted shower. I believe I used the university one. I think I considered using the Snowy Escape one, but I might have swapped it out because it bothers me that there's a mirror attached to it. I don't think that's the most realistic thing. So I think I swap it out, but we shall see. I'm just figuring this out now. And I end up putting a little bit of clutter in here. I end up putting the shower caddy on the wall. So there's soaps and a loofah and all of that in that space. And then I got a couple of these floating vanities from Dream Home Decorator. And I believe a bidet is in this apartment as well, as those came with Snowy Escape, which is based on Japan. So I thought that made a lot of sense for this apartment. But yeah, over here I did end up adding toilet paper anyway, so that it felt more complete in my eyes, because that's something I'm used to seeing in apartments and in real life homes. And I feel like even though it has a bidet in here, if I didn't add toilet paper, somebody would say something about it. So I did include that, and then we're just getting a couple more decorations before we head on into screenshots. I really hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, make sure you give this video a big thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see more, and click that bell to be notified when I upload. Thank you so much for watching, and enjoy the screenshots. Bye, everyone.